Hello, my name's Geoff Kersey, and in this programme I'm going to give you lots of hints and tips to help you with your paintings of trees, woodlands and forests. In this scene of a woodland in spring, I want to show you how I added a lighter figure to an already painted darker background. I took a small piece of tracing paper and drew a figure to the size that I felt would look appropriate on this path, and I can now use the tracing paper to get the figure in just the right position. Let's move it around a bit. This area where the coat meets the trousers, I don't want that exactly there, or that will sort of split it in half. So I do need to be careful about the positioning. I don't think I want to put it exactly in the centre of the path. That would be too symmetrical, so I think what we'll do is move it down a bit and a little over to the left, and I think that's about right. I'm now just going to put the pencil underneath the tracing paper and make a little mark where the feet of the figure is going to be. And then I'm just going to use a craft knife to cut out the shape of the coat. So now I've cut the body out of the figure, I'm going to return it to position, just take a damp, clean sponge, and really now I'm using the tracing paper as a stencil, and I'm going to remove the dark green colour in the exact shape of the walker's coat. And while it's still damp, I'm just going to dab it with a bit of tissue to take the rest of the colour out. So that's just given us a little stenciled shape for the coat of the figure. I just need to leave it to dry. So now that little stenciled out shape is dry, I've got a number 2 detailer brush, and I'm just going to get a little bit of red. It's vermilion actually, a really bright warm red. Red's always a good option when you're working against green, because of course it's the complete contrast. And we'll just paint this little shape in. That little triangular shape to suggest the elbows, hands in his pockets. The light, you can tell, is coming from the right hand side, so I'm going to take a little bit of cobalt blue and touch a little bit of that in at the left hand side of the coat so that it appears more three-dimensional. It's got a little bit of shadow on the left hand side. I'm then going to take some ultramarine blue, quite a strong mixture of ultramarine blue. I'll add a little touch of burnt sienna as well, slightly grey it. And let's put the legs in, treating it fairly simply, giving the impression that he's walking away from us. It's nice if the colours blend a little bit. I'm taking a damp brush and encouraging the colour to blend a little bit around there. As you can see, the head of the figure is also going to be against a really dark background. We've got a dark green behind it. So I'm going to take a little touch. I'm going to make it a grey-haired or even white-haired person. I'm taking a little bit of gouache, add a touch of raw sienna to it. In other words, a little bit of opaque colour. And still with this fine number 2 brush, leaving a little gap to suggest the collar of the jacket. I'm going to put that little shape in for the head. Bear in mind that by and large, the head goes about 8 times into the body, so important at this stage not to make it too big. A bit more light on it, I think, a bit more of the opaque white. So I've now got some opaque white with a little bit of raw sienna. Let's put a backpack on and make him look like a rambler or walker. A little bit more white on the light side, then with a little bit of the dark brown, the burnt sienna and ultramarine blue. I think the backpack would create a little bit of shadow, make it look three-dimensional. And then of course, very important, we've got all these trees on the right hand side casting shadows down the bank and across the path, so the figure won't actually look like it's there until it casts a shadow as well. So I've got a little bit of cobalt blue and rose madder to make a shadow colour, and let's just get a shadow coming from the feet, across the path and slightly up the bank. And that's it, important not to put too much detail in. And here you can see this in the context of the finished picture. In this one I'm going to show you how I approach painting a silver birch tree. I first of all drew in the basic shape of the tree trunk, masked it out and then painted a dark green background. I've now removed the masking fluid and I've made 3 washes of paint. I'm going to start by wetting the whole of the tree trunk with clean water. This enables the colours I'm going to float into the soft background to blend together. So first of all I'm going to put a little bit of the cobalt blue and cobalt violet mixture in. I'm concentrating more colour towards the right hand side of the trunk because I've got the light coming from the left. So I'm putting a bit more colour and a bit more shadow onto the right hand side. I don't need to worry about that little branch there for the time being. Then cleaning the brush, I'm picking up the orange colour. This is a mixture of raw sienna and burnt sienna, and this puts a little bit of warmth into it, a little bit of sunlight, making it a little bit blotchy and irregular, not too neat and tidy. At the same time though, I'm trying to get that cylindrical effect. I'm trying to make the trunk look rounded. A little bit more blue down here, I think, and maybe a bit more of the orange. I'm going to make that raw sienna and burnt sienna mixture slightly redder by adding a bit more burnt sienna. Touch of that into there. It's a case of working fairly rapidly while your background remains wet so that the colours do mix and blend. But I'm keeping away from that left-hand side of the trunk, so I've got some white paper there to look like light. And now I'm picking up the brown mixture. This is the burnt sienna and cobalt blue. This should be slightly thicker than the previous two colours. And let's concentrate this more or less at the right hand side of the trunk, bringing it into the branch there. Best not to overdo it. I'm using the very point of the brush so I don't put too much paint in. If you overdo it and lose that light, it's very difficult to get that back again. Okay, I'm cleaning the brush again, topping it up with clean water, and I'm just going to coat this branch with clean water, allowing that dark brown to wander into it a touch. Then I'm getting a smaller brush and some more of that brown, and I'm putting that along the underside of that branch. Put a smaller branch coming off it. I'm going to encourage that to blend by just going over it with a damp, clean brush. Now that needs some drying time. So we can see now that that's dry, that the trunk has a sort of cylindrical effect to it. And I achieved this by putting more of the colour over at the right-hand side and leaving more white paper at the left. It was very important that I did this fairly quickly so that I could take advantage of the wetness of the trunk and let the colours blend into each other. So there's only a little bit of detail to put in now. So I've made a fairly dark brown mixture now with burnt sienna and ultramarine blue. This is just a little bit darker than the brown I put in earlier. And I've got a number 2 or detailer brush. And often with a silver birch you get a few rings around the trunk. And put in a few suggestions of these in. They are slightly curved to sort of emphasise the cylindrical nature of the trunk again. Best to keep stopping, having a look what you're doing as well, because anything like this, it's very easy to overdo it. If you get a few little marks in the trunk, some little irregular shapes. I'm letting a little bit of the dark colour go into the left-hand side, but I still am concentrating more dark over at the right-hand side of the trunk. I've added a bit more burnt sienna now to make this a little redder. We'll just do a little bit more. A little bit of texture on that branch. But again, it's easy to get carried away and do too much. I think that's about right. That's plenty of detail. And here you can see this effect in the context of the finished picture.